Hi, my name is Brooke Ledoux. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and right now I'm working towards getting my degree in business management to support my career in real estate. I've had my real estate license for about 3 years now and have been helping people buy and sell their homes to support myself while in school and while building my business. I work as a server, support myself which helps me network with new people, and the schedule allows flexibility with being in school and my other job. Every time I enjoy hiking, especially in Arizona. I also enjoy cooking and trying new recipes. I'm excited about where my education and experiences will take me. I'm always looking for new ways to grow in both my personal and professional. The fundamental ethical issue I'm going to be addressing today is the ethical issues for the company behind OxyContin and the actions that could have potentially caused the opioid crisis. They heavily marketed their drug, making it widely prescribed, even though it is highly addictive. This led to many people becoming addicted, and many died from overdose. The company's role in pushing a dangerous drug without properly advertising the risks and offering treatment for addiction has hurt many communities. The ethical problem is whether the company took enough responsibility for the harm caused by its drug and if they did enough to prevent the crisis they helped create. I think there are many different ways that this company could resolve their ethical issues, starting with providing compensation to the families affected by the opioid addiction and overdose. This could be helping with their healthcare or addiction treatment. They could also fund programs that provide better access to addiction treatment, especially in areas lacking in that department. Another solution would be making the drug safer, coming with more information and having doctors better inform their patients about the dangers. And finally, they could have different programs to improve the public education on opioids, the risk, and ways to prevent addiction. Based on the discussion posts from weeks 1 through 6, I have decided how 3 different classmates would handle this situation. For starters, I believe Emily Winders, based on her discussion post, would handle the OxyContin issue by focusing on trust, fairness, and the importance of determining clear guidelines for ethical behavior. This is because in the human resource issue post, they discussed the challenges of remote work, emphasizing the importance of trust between employees and employers. They believe that the business should trust their employees enough to not micromanage. Applying this to the OxyContin issue, they would likely focus on how the company should be accountable for its actions and build trust with the public by taking responsibility for the harm it's caused by its drug. In the Code of Ethics post, they highlighted the value of the Code of Ethics in guiding a company's behavior and how a lack of accountability from leadership can lead to unethical practices. They would likely argue that the company behind OxyContin should have a solid code of ethics in place to guide its decisions, especially around marketing and addiction risks. This code should emphasize honesty, responsibility, and commitment to public safety. They would also believe that if the company fails to follow ethical guidelines, it is important for leadership to enforce those standards and hold the company accountable. Lastly, from the corporate social responsibility post, they express the importance of maximizing shareholders' value, but they also stress the need for the business to be responsible and transparent on how they use their resources. In the case of OxyContin, they might argue that the company should prioritize public health over profits, ensuring that the products are safe and addiction treatment is accessible. They would also emphasize the need for transparency and fairness, where the company acts in a way that benefits both the public and its shareholders without causing harm. Overall, this person would handle the OxyContin issue by advocating for strong ethical principles, accountability, and trust, ensuring the company is responsible for the consequences of its actions and that public safety comes first. Next, I believe that Ashley Sherez, based on her posts, would approach the OxyContin issue with a strong focus on ethics, transparency, and social responsibility. They value honesty and believe companies should be held accountable for their actions, especially when it involves harming people or exploiting vulnerable populations. In the case of OxyContin, this person would likely argue they should have been more transparent about the risk of addiction and should have focused on people's well-being rather than just profits. In their sweatshop post, they discuss how sweatshops are unethical because they exploit vulnerable workers using unsafe conditions and low wages. They would likely see marketing of OxyContin as in a similar light, targeting people who are in pain without fully acknowledging the risk of addiction, just as they advocate for boycotting companies with unethical labor practices. They might suggest holding the OxyContin company accountable through legal action or public pressure, especially if the company knowingly caused harm. In their bad advertising post, they point out how certain advertising campaigns can be offensive and disrespectful. They would likely find OxyContin's marketing unethical if it misled doctors and patients about the risks of the drug, especially if the consequences were so severe. Just as they found some of the campaigns problematic, they would argue that the OxyContin's marketing downplayed the real dangers of addiction. And finally, in their corporate responsibility post, they emphasized the importance of transparency, especially in corporations, and agree with the idea that companies should focus on generating profits while also maintaining ethical behavior. Applying this to the OxyContin issue, they would argue that the company should not use misleading marketing or hide behind profit motives, but instead create a product that is both profitable and safe. Their disclosure about the risk of addiction. I believe this person would handle the OxyContin issues by advocating for transparency, accountability, and ethical business practices that prioritize people's well-being over profits. They would likely push for stronger regulations and the public pressure to ensure companies take responsibility for their harmful actions. And based on their discussion posts, I believe Gavin really would approach the OxyContin issue by emphasizing the importance of clear ethical framework and accountability. They seem to value strong leadership and company culture as a key to ensuring ethical behavior. So they would likely argue that the company behind OxyContin should have focused on creating a strong code of ethics and ensured all employees were trained to understand the risks and responsibilities surrounding the drug. If the company had had a code of ethics and enforced it, they might have prevented the marketing that downplayed the addiction risks. In their code of ethics post, they discussed how a company code of ethics can shape behavior, especially if it's taught during employee training. They believe that strong ethical leadership is essential for the OxyContin situation. They would argue that if the company had trained employees properly about the dangers of addiction and ethical responsibilities of promoting a potentially harmful product, it might have led to different marketing decisions. The company would have been more likely to prioritize patient safety over profits. In their corporate social responsibility post, they state that it is unethical for company to use shareholder money for charitable donations without their consent. Applying this to OxyContin, they might argue that the company's primary responsibility is to its shareholders, but that doesn't mean it should ignore the harm caused by its product. While they support maximizing shareholder profit, they would likely believe that the company could have been more transparent with and responsible with how it marketed the drug, ensuring it did not harm people or mislead doctors and patients. Finally, in their bad advertising post, they identified unethical advertising practices that use sensitive topics for profit. They would likely see OxyContin's marketing as similarly problematic, and as it downplayed the risks of addiction and misled doctors and patients about the drug's safety. This person would argue that it's unethical to use misleading or manipulative advertising, especially when people's health and lives are at stake. In summary, this person would handle the OxyContin issue by pushing for stronger ethical standards, transparency, and accountability, ensuring that the company prioritizes the well-being of its customers while also turning a profit for shareholders. If I had to pick one person's viewpoint to agree with, I would choose Ashley's. She believes that the company should be transparent and responsible, especially when their actions harm people. I completely support this because businesses have a responsibility to be honest and care about the well-being of others, not just make money. The makers of OxyContin misled doctors and patients about the risk of addiction, which caused a lot of harm. Ashley's point that companies like this should be held accountable is thoroughly important to me. Just like how we wouldn't accept bad working conditions in sweatshops, we shouldn't accept drug companies lying about the danger of their drugs. Ashley also mentions that unethical advertisings like Hyundai and Mountain Dew is a big problem. Similarly, the OxyContin marketing downplayed serious dangers, which was wrong. It's not just about making a profit, it's making sure people are safe, and I agree that businesses should focus on being honest and ethical while also making money.